Thanks for joining us at this news hour on Equinoxe Television. I am Babla Jonathan. In our top stories in this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television, a Cameroonian goes down on her knees begging for help from a foreign authority to end the more than 4-year-long armed conflict in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon after about 8 of her relatives died in the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon. She went down on her knees in front of the Australian Prime Minister, lamenting over the traumatizing situation. And in other news, we'll also talk about the situation notably in the city of Douala, Cameroon's economic capital, where some inhabitants are already feeling the destructive impact of heavy downpours as the rainy season draws near. Several classrooms deprived of their roofs because of the heavy downpour that hit the Douala 4 municipality yesterday. Heavy rains are already bringing destruction on properties in the city of Douala as the rainy season draws near. And a case in point in this newscast is the government bilingual high school Mabanda in the Douala 4 subdivision, where the roofs of several classrooms were destroyed by heavy rains accompanied by winds that took off some of the roofs of classrooms in that institution. Manjika and Gabriel Rada, Immaculate Fogwe reports.
Torrential rainfall accompanied by strong wind blows off the roofs of several classrooms of Government Bilingual High School Mabanda in the Douala 4 subdivision. Though no one was hurt in the incident, students of the affected classrooms were forced to squeeze themselves in already occupied classrooms for lectures. Apart from classrooms, several houses around the Mabanda area were equally affected by the wind.
It was around about 2:30 to 3 o'clock. A sudden storm, that's breeze, serious breeze, was just coming from the sea, very heavy. So as a sudden, it took off the roof of the school, as you can find it yourself. Through part of the school, those rough things, it carried and then threw on our neighbor's wall. Passed and then came and struck my own house too. This is my personal house.
Locals believe the constant felling of trees by the population must have provoked the natural disaster.
You know, this natural disaster, we cannot blame somebody for it, but what I understand is that since the government has always asked us not to cut down mangroves, I think one of the points should be these mangroves, because the mangroves at times used to be cut by certain people in the quarters. So it is the government has spoken about it, but people could not respect. So I find that some of these things is the mangrove which we have been cutting down for their personal use.
Teachers of the schools say the disaster will affect them because the remaining classrooms will not be enough to accommodate all the learners. With the COVID-19 pandemic, they believe it will be difficult for them to implement the social distancing rule. Competent authorities are being urged to act fast in order to remedy the situation.
Heavy rains and wind destroying classrooms in Government Bilingual High School Mabanda in the Douala 4 subdivision, and these are some of the consequences of heavy downpour often suffered by inhabitants of several parts of Cameroon's economic capital, added to heavy floods that often accompany the heavy downpour. And now we take you to Lum in the Mongo Division Littoral region of the Republic of Cameroon, where some inhabitants of the municipality took to the streets protesting against some renovation projects notably launched by the council of that area, notably around the ceremonial ground. And the inhabitants are protesting over what they consider as hidden agendas behind some of those projects launched by the council of the area. Details in this report by Smanji Kangebre.
Women dressed in black go out on the street in Lum to protest against a construction plan orchestrated by the mayor of Lum. The population say the renovation work planned by the mayor at the ceremonial ground is uncalled for, since important areas exist that the mayor could develop. We are surprised because the state of roads in Lum are poor. Normally these roads are supposed to be given priority. We don't use the ceremonial grounds often, so the priority zone should have been the roads in Lum.
La priorité c'était au niveau des routes, parce que quand on voit les voitures, les benzineurs, c'est impraticable, c'est difficile de rouler.
Major streets in Lum are in very poor state, just like the road leading to the Lum Council building. These zones, the population say, should attract attention. The work that the mayor of Lum has planned to do at the ceremonial ground, according to the chief of Bafung, is not welcomed because he says the mayor will destroy their forefathers' tomb. The mayor doesn't own any land around the tribune. There is a path there the population of Lum and the Bafun community leaves behind. He has an intention and we don't want it. We know he wants to demolish houses and the graves of our forefathers. He had demolished houses before, but nothing has been done in that zone. He directs the mayor to places that needs his attention. If he wants to construct the roads, there are places he can do that. The council doesn't have good roads. We have horrible roads in Lum that he can fix. Why is he looking just behind the tribune? The mayor of Lum says the work he intends to do at the ceremonial ground must go on no matter the opposition. We have vowed to beautify the ceremonial ground of Lum, but people think our work isn't necessary. In many towns, they are renewing their ceremonial grounds. The spaces behind are automatically government spaces that we can use.
Dans toutes les villes, on aménage les places de fête. Et ces endroits qui sont là, que vous voyez, sont déclarés, ce sont des endroits qui sont déclarés d'utilité publique depuis 1970.
The tug of war between the population and the mayor of Lum over his planned renovation work at the ceremonial ground will have a go-ahead after a visit that is supposed to be done by the divisional officer of Lum on Thursday.
In the report coming up next, our Southwest correspondent Derek Jato takes a look at the impact of the Anglophone crisis on the Muyuka Council and the development of that municipality, and he takes a look at how the municipal authorities are now striving to turn down the adverse consequences of the crisis and enhance development despite the threats coming from secessionists. Details in this report.
Muyuka Council and the war in the Anglophone regions.
You bear with me that this council, the doors of this council have been shut down for a while because of the crisis that we all know.
About 3 years, this council penalized the population. Where you can go and renew a document and make an ID card. You cannot go to where.
I think in Fako Division, Moyoka is chief. We have had a fair share of that crisis, and it dealt with us in our accounts.
But the present atmosphere is bringing some hopes.
Yes, although here in Moyoka we are not collecting revenue, but the population is coming here. They understand that the administration is nearer. They are celebrating marriages here. All their birth certificate is here.
And this council has been able to carry out some project.
The trouble of the UK village is there. People they are drinking water. The supply of the materials at the department here.
But that is not all. Many developmental projects are still in the pipeline for the Moyoka people. But there is one condition for such projects to be realized.
But these projects can only be realized if there is peace. This process can only be realized if our brothers and sisters who are in the bushes in Ekona, Muyuka, Munyenge come out and give us an helping hand so that we, as a team, just as we were doing before, ensure that these projects are being realized.
And today, Mayor Langino Lazar, the mayor of the Moyoka Council, and his councillors are sitting for the first ordinary session to examine and adopt the Moyoka Council 2020 administrative, management and stores management accounts.
We had budgeted a billion plus about 1,338 million, but we were able to only realize 500 and a few million. So, and I wish to appreciate the laudable efforts of my Mayor Langino Lazar.
Addressing his collaborators, Mayor Langino Lazar pointed out that it is turbulent, no doubt, but begged his collaborators to continue with the spirit of unity they have exhibited this while, adding that unity is the lone tool needed at this trial moment for growth and continuity.
She left the country since 2009 and has been residing in Australia. And 7 years after her departure, crisis broke out in her area of origin in the Anglophone northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon. She is Lillian and says that she has already seen 8 of her family members dying in the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon. In a traumatizing state of mind, she went down on her knees in front of the Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison, begging for help. Take a listen.
There's a genocide going down. Yes. I've lost all of my family. I have no family left. We don't have it. Everybody went down. Help me. Help me.
I've got my team here and Michelle's team's here.
Yeah, I'm taking Michelle.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to her, but they haven't done anything. Every day my people are being killed.
Yeah.
I go through trauma every day. Help me.
Well, we're bringing many people across under our refugee program from Africa, so we are doing that. And if there are family members or others who are part of that process, I know Michelle will pursue those matters with the Immigration Minister, okay?
A Cameroonian from crisis-stricken Anglophone Cameroon begging for help from a foreign authority and saying that she has already lost 8 of her family members in the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. Now coming up, Charles Sekome takes a look at efforts by authorities in Cameroon to put some order in the commercial motorbike sector. His report.
In the east region of Cameroon, the transport sector has recorded an influx of commercial motorbike riders who do not possess a driver's license, says Amana Céline of the Central Transport Syndicate. A study proved that less than 19% of commercial motorbike riders possess a driver's license. In regards to this study, we took the decision of sensitizing the population. This portion of motorbike riders who do not have this transport documents. A phenomenon which is at the origin of numerous road accidents. In a bid to remedy this recurring problem, a Category A driver's license examination session is launched at the Government Bilingual High School Betare Oya, supervised by the Regional Delegate of Transport in the East Region, Bia Paul.
Cette session spéciale d'examen de permis moto nous permet.
This special examination session, exclusively for commercial motorbike riders, will help us establish a legit commercial motorbike syndicate. These instructions were given by the Minister of Transport.
Ici, lieu de relever l'engouement des uns et des autres.
The Central Syndicate of Transport in the region went on to sensitize commercial motorbike riders so they can partake in the second phase of the examination. This process began 1 year ago with a study which was conducted in all 4 divisions of the East region. Over 41 candidates were eligible to partake in these examinations, which were taken in 2 phases, notably the written and practical sessions. Though in the past, so many candidates were victims of fraudulent transport syndicates. This is actually the time to denounce the poor behavior of certain transport syndicates members who have abused authority by giving out wrong information to young citizens for personal interest. Seated behind a motorbike, Pierre Paul, the Regional Delegate of Transport in the East Region, led the way for those who were still hesitating to take the examinations so as to acquire their Category A license. Moreover, syndicate leaders have urged transporters to register for the examination. The other transporters who have not yet been registered could start the registration process. We have already begun sensitization in Betwa. This special examination was also acknowledged by elated candidates. We are in support of this initiative. My colleagues and I are happy to have been part of this exercise. After the practical session of the examination, the candidates are still awaiting results, which will be published in the days ahead, followed by the awarding of a driver's license to successful candidates.
In news out of the Republic of Cameroon, will bring to you a fascinating story of a 25-year-old Malian woman, mother of nonuplets. The 25-year-old Malian woman has given birth to 9 babies, 2 more than the doctors had detected during scan, and Halima Sisi gave birth to the nonuplets in Morocco. Mali's government flew her there for specialist care. A woman who had 8 babies in the United States of America in 2009 holds the Guinness World Record for the most children delivered at a single birth to survive. 2 sets of nonuplets have previously been recorded, one born to a woman in Australia in 1971 and another to a woman in Malaysia in 1999, but none of the babies survived more than a few days. Mrs. Sisei's pregnancy became a subject of fascination in Mali, even when it was thought she was only carrying septuplets, that is 7 babies, and the mother and her 9 babies are expected back home in weeks. And that's it for the first part of this newscast. Coming up next, Talking Point. Thank you for staying with us in Talking Points. Today we are receiving a nurse, president of the Cameroon Association of Nurses and Midwives, Gang Nelson. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Mr. Babila Jonathan. It's my pleasure to be on your set today.
We are going to be talking about the nursing and midwifery professions and the coronavirus. But before that, you watched this video of a Cameroonian in Australia falling at the feet of the prime minister of that country, begging for help and saying that she has lost about 8 members of her family back home in the Anglophone regions stricken by crisis, and actually saying that she's living in trauma because of what is happening to her relatives and other brothers and sisters from the 2 regions. What's your take about that scene?
Thank you, Mr. Babila, once more. For somebody to lost 8 members of the family, it's really a traumatic situation. I can imagine what this lady is going through, and I think she's using what she has, what she can use to be able to see how the crisis come to an end. And if I'm in her position, I would do same. I think most of us, the common people, so far as the Northwest and the Southwest are concerned, we are really crying, and we really pray the crisis comes to an end.
You are from the northwest region of the country, and I'm sure you are affected like every other Anglophone and other Cameroonians at large, because it's a crisis that is not only limited to the northwest and southwest regions of the country. Its impact cuts across the national territory. And when you see a woman, for that matter, in that in such a position, falling and begging for help from a foreign leader, does that speak of a kind of situation of no help, no hope, a helpless situation?
I just said if I was in her position, I think she's using the last opportunity or means she has to be able to see how the crisis can come to an end. Back at home, you all know we have been trying. We thought the crisis should have ended before now, but now if it's not getting to an end, and I find myself in her position, yes, I would do the same.
That's quite pathetic then.
Yeah.
A Cameroonian begging for help abroad.
We hope the crisis really comes to an end.
We hope so.
Wherever the help comes from, we hope it comes to an end.
We really hope so. Now, let's talk about midwives and nurses. You are a nurse, and your day will be coming up on the 12th of this month. Yes, and today, the 5th, is the day of midwives. And you are the president of Nurses and Midwives in Cameroon, the Association of Nurses and Midwives in Cameroon. What is it like to be a frontline worker in this time of coronavirus?
Before I come to that, permit me to make this clear. I'm the president of Cameroon Association of Registered Nurses and Midwives. It's actually one of the associations in Cameroon that has to do with the nursing and the midwifery profession. We have a membership of about 700 members, and we've been existing for about 3 years now. That said, thank you once more for the question. Nurses and midwives, like you know, form the majority of the group so far as the healthcare profession is concerned. And if they form the majority of the group, it goes a long way to tell you that a lot, so far as the healthcare system is concerned, has to depend on nurses and midwives. And being a frontline leader, being a frontline worker, so far as this pandemic is concerned, it's not been easy. It's been one of the moments where you see some people really have to rethink whether they actually wanted to be a nurse. You see some people actually want to rethink whether they actually wanted to be a midwife, because you get to work long hours, you get to be under personal protective equipment for long hours, uncomfortable environment. So it's really been challenging. Worse still is, you know, our relief usually comes when you work with patients and at the end you see them recovering. But it comes to situations where the pandemic has come to a point where you get cases where you really can't help. And so it's really a challenging moment.
How are you managing the pressure and the risk of getting contaminated in this atmosphere of COVID-19?
Exactly, and that is why I say it is partly because of that where you realize some people at this moment really want to think, is this the profession I really want to, do I really want to be a nurse? Do I really want to be a midwife? Because the pandemic knows no professional. The virus does not know whether you are a nurse or you are a midwife. And so you are exposed as well. But then, if you took the oath, if you are there to care for persons, you have to go in for it. And of course, it's why we keep on pleading with different stakeholders. As we are in front, we should be able to be protected as well with by having enough protective personal protective equipment to help us face such challenges.
I was going to ask you a question on that, because there have been issues since the coronavirus started in Cameroon. There have been issues of protection of health workers in general. Many of the workers saying that they are not protected, especially those in minor hospitals, private hospitals, away from the urban centers, and even some who are in the urban centers.
Exactly, and I use this opportunity to appreciate the Ministry of Public Health. You know, when the first dose of vaccines against the COVID came in, they recognized the efforts of the healthcare workers to get them vaccinated first. But then, like you say, it's been a big problem. It's been a big problem because the personal protective equipment, especially in private sectors, especially in the rural areas, have not really been sufficient. It's unfortunate because it's not just in our country, but you realize these are some of the things that would hold some nurses to think whether to actually go in front and fight or to stay back. Yes, the issue of personal protective equipment has really been one of the challenging issues, and we keep on appealing to stakeholders. We keep on appealing to the Ministry of Public Health to be able to ensure that not just the public sectors, not just hospitals in the urban areas, but those in rural and semi-urban areas should be supplied with this equipment, so that these nurses, these midwives, and other healthcare professionals who find themselves as front line workers should actually be protected and give the care that is deserved to these patients.
In the meantime, the vaccination is already here, the vaccines are already here, and the frontline workers are been given priority, like you indicated. How is the vaccination unfolding at the level of the frontline workers, the medical staff?
It's going on so well. You know, we would always have some polemics so far as that is concerned. We will always have theories, but then so far so good. Many of them have stepped up. Many of the healthcare workers, many nurses, many midwives, many medical practitioners have stepped up to be able to get the vaccine, and so far it's going on well. You would also understand that the statistics so far as the virus is concerned, these recent days have been dropping.
There have been some improvement.
Yes, there have been some improvement. We can't say for certain whether it's the vaccine, but then as a frontline worker, it's one of the ways. If you want to protect yourself, we encourage you to go in for it. And I want to appreciate the effort of every nurse, every midwife, medical doctor who's gone in for it, because you're showing an example to the known professionals.
You have certainly taken your dose already.
Sure, I have.
All right, and what will you tell those who are still skeptical about vaccination, raising questions and not being very sure about the vaccination issue and so on?
Of course, it remains a choice. It remains a choice. But then, vaccines have always been there to protect mankind. Vaccines have always been there as a preventive measures for diseases like what we find ourselves in at the moment. And so I will always encourage everybody, if you have the opportunity, step up and get vaccinated. Of course, we would always have side effects, just like with paracetamol and other drugs. But then I think if the side or unwanted effects were really alarming, the number of persons who've taken the vaccines so far would have had indications with them.
All right. Beyond the coronavirus era, tell us a little more about the work of nurses and midwives in Cameroon.
Thank you, Mr. Babila Jonathan, once more. You know, like I said earlier, the nurse and the midwife, they form the majority so far as the healthcare profession is concerned. They do a lot, but unfortunately, they have not actually been recognized for the work they do. The nurse, for example, has to spend 24 hours with the patient. He is always there. She is always there to be with the patient. But unfortunately, like I said, a lot, so far as recognition, is still to be seen so far as the work of the nurse and midwives are concerned.
When you talk of recognition, what are you referring to?
When I talk of recognition, it comes up in different ways. You know, most often the society would call me, maybe because of my male, a doctor, because they want to recognize more of the medical doctor than the nurse. When I talk of recognition, I'm talking about the training, even in schools, to be able to recognize nurses that are upcoming. So, in fact, in summary, what I'm trying to say is nurses and midwives need to really have their place so far as the healthcare system is concerned. Many decisions are taken at the level of the healthcare system for nurses, but not by nurses. And it's one of the things we are clamoring for, so that decisions about nurses should be taken by nurses.
With nurses.
With nurses.
Nurses should be more implicated
exactly.
in the health strategy, the whole medical system of the country, the decisions that are taken, and of course the implementation and so on. But why is it that there is an association of nurses and midwives, and you are the president, and decisions are taken concerning nurses and midwives, and you are not brought to the table, you are not brought to the decision table, you are not brought to the thinking table?
It's one of the reasons I talked about recognition. The profession of nursing is still growing in the country, and it's actually one of the reasons why the association came up. You know, many people who are not professionals misinterpret a number of things. For example, there is a lot that the nurse and the medical doctor do in common, but there is a lot too that is different. A medical doctor is it's under the medical profession, medicine, while a nurse is under a nursing profession. And most often, they see the medical doctor as a boss to the nurse. And they recognize more of the medical doctors, more of the physicians, who in turn take decisions for nurses. But I would say a lot has been happening, and you get many of the nurses who are growing up so fast the academic ladder career is concerned. And with all of this, we hope that in the nearest future, nurses would also find themselves in the central level so far as healthcare is concerned, and will be part of such decisions.
You mentioned training. Where are the flaws or shortcomings at the level of training, the training of nurses and midwives? what is not being well done by the authorities who are in charge of training, who are in charge of education, for example?
That is a very, very important question. And if I could answer just that question here before I leave this evening, I think I would have been very satisfied. It is important for me to let you know that in any country where the nursing profession is advanced, in Nigeria, in Ghana, in South Africa, in the USA, there is what we call the regulatory body. The regulatory body, it regulates the training of nurses, it regulates the practice and all whatnot. In Cameroon, we can't really talk about the regulatory body for now. We have different stakeholders who are involved in the training of nurses at different levels. And because there is no regulatory body at the moment, we have had people who have taken opportunity, because many people want to do nursing, many people want to travel abroad. We've had persons who have taken opportunity of this gap to be able to train nurses. And because of this, we have people who are sent out in the name of nurses being trained with little or no competence. And it's part of our objectives as the Cameroon Association of Registered Nurses and Midwives to be able to meet with these different stakeholders and see how we have a regulatory body so far as the training of nurses is concerned.
If I get you clearly, in the absence, because of the absence of a regulatory authority in the strict sense of the word, there are the training delivered in schools where nurses are trained are not always adequate and not always equal to what is required for anyone to become a nurse.
Yes, I would say some schools. Okay, I would say some schools. Some people have taken opportunity of this gap to come in. Yes, it's not required because we need that regulatory body, which is made up of nurses who can be able to say, Mr. Minister of Public Health, Mr. Minister of Higher Education, because these are the two main ministries involved in the training, we think this school meets the requirement. And now follow up so far as the staff is concerned. Follow up so far as the hospitals that the nurses are trained are concerned. Follow up so far as exams, follow up so far as certification are concerned. Yes, because of that lack of that regulatory body, we've had this gap. And we have people who take advantage of that and come into the profession. We have many quacks, and which has really brought down the name of the profession into mud.
Right. Now, what are you people doing at the level of the association, the Cameroon Association of Registered Nurses and Midwives? What have you been doing to press for this regulatory body to be put in place?
Thank you. We, like I said, we are not the only association so far as nurses and midwives are concerned. The first thing is we are lobbying with other associations to be able to work together as one. With that, we are in plans of meeting even with the ministry, different ministries concerned, to table to them. But then we have to work first as one, so far as these different associations are concerned, to be able to forward to the different ministries concerned the plan for a regulatory body. Informally, I am in talks with the presidents of the other associations so we can see how we are able to push this forward.
Right, and on this day consecrated to midwives, who are those who are directly connected, directly linked to childbirth, what are you telling the midwives who are working sometimes in difficult conditions, not in very favorable conditions, but they have to do everything possible to ensure that a mother delivers safely, to ensure that the mother and the child are safe, and this is quite delicate.
Thank you once more. I use this opportunity to maybe share with the viewers that the theme for this year, so far as the day of the midwives is concerned, has to do with follow the data, invest in midwives. Follow the data, invest in midwives. And happy day of the midwife to every midwife outside there. They've been doing a tremendous job. I must tell you, they've been doing a tremendous job. You know, for some years back, the training of midwives in the country was actually suspended. But then that saw an increase in the maternal mortality rate. And some few years back, the training of midwives was reinstituted. And it's proving great results. It's proving results. And for 2011, for example, we had about 70,000
midwives.
70,000 mortality so far as the maternal mortality rate was concerned. But recently we are talking about 40,000. It is still not satisfactory, and that is why the theme is saying if we follow the data and invest in midwife, we'll get better results.
In terms of reducing maternal and
maternal and infant mortality so far as the situation in Cameroon is concerned.
All right, quickly, the nurses will be having their own day on the 12th.
Yes, we would be celebrating the International Nurses Day on the 12th under the theme, Nurses, a voice to lead, a vision for future healthcare. A voice to lead, a vision for the future healthcare. This is to say, so far as the healthcare system is concerned, it is in the hands of nurses. We have to do a lot if we are the majority, not just in number, but so far as the output is concerned. And in relation to this day, we are organizing a 2-day leadership seminar, which will take place in Yaoundé on the 10th and 11th. We would also have the celebration on the day of the day itself on the 12th with the work and award of prizes to different student nurses and different personalities we identified.
All right, Gang Nelson, you are a nurse, president of the Cameroon Association of Registered Nurses and Midwives. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for this edition of the news on Equinoxe Television. Equinoxe Wise up next.